Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 279. Thank you for tuning in. Man, today just is such a beautiful day. The sun is a little bit brighter. The air is just a little bit more crisp. It feels like Christmas again this morning. And that's because the United States is under new leadership. The nightmare of the past 4 years is over, and it feels good. It feels good. Now, we still have a lot of work to do to make America great again. America's not great again today just because Donald Trump is sworn in again. We have a lot of damage to repair, not only from the last 4 years of the disastrous Biden administration, but quite frankly, we have a lot to repair, of decades of damage that have been done to this country. And Donald Trump today gave his speech after being sworn in, and he's committed to putting us on a course to make this country great again. And it feels good. It feels good to have a president that is committed to this country, is committed to the American people. And he's not going to be able to do it by himself. We have a lot of work to do to repair this country. And if we can do it, then we can turn the country back and have great success. But we're going to talk about all that stuff today. If we can't do it, then unfortunately, we're going to continue with the decline. But that was a key part of President Trump's speech that he gave today. He said that America's decline is over. And I just thought that was just a appropriate statement to say, because America has been in decline. We've been in decline for a long time. And that was a very appropriate thing to say in his speech today, that the decline is over. The decline is not over just because he says that it's over, but to have a president in office that is committed to ending the decline and to making this country great again, man, it feels good. So let's get into today's show. The pardons. Let's talk about Joe Biden real quick and the pardons. I told you that we're going to be surprised at these pardons that were expected, and Joe Biden did not disappoint when it comes to the pardons that he handed out in the last hours of his presidency. The entire January 6th committee, the two Republicans that were censored by the Republican Party for taking part in this, Adam Kinzinger and Dick Cheney's daughter, they got pardons. But then all the Democrats got pardons. Jamie Raskins got pardons. Adam Schiff got pardons. All the Democrats that participated in the January 6th committee, that fraudulent committee, got pardons from Joe Biden today in the last hours of his administration. The police officers, the Capitol police officers that lied to the committee in their testimony, especially this one right here, Harry Dunn, lied. They called me the N-word and all this stuff. I mean, just complete lying. All these guys got pardons. Why do these guys need pardons if they didn't do anything wrong? They lied. Fanone got a pardon. All these guys got pardons. So the January 6th committee all got pardons. The Capitol Police liars that lied to the committee, they all got pardons. Mark Milley. Why did Mark Milley need a pardon, people? Why do any of these people need pardons? Why do these people need pardons? They didn't do anything wrong. They all got pardons. Why'd they get pardons if they didn't do anything wrong? But they all got pardons. And you look at him holding his right hand up. this is them swearing in under oath while they're lying under oath. And now that's why they got pardons, because they lied under oath. That's why they got pardons. These guys, they got pardons because this fraudulent committee got rid of and deleted all of the evidence and testimony and stuff from this fraudulent committee. All got pardons. Mark Milley got pardoned. Why Mark Milley? Mark Milley was the Joint Chiefs of Staff under Trump in his first term. He got a pardon today. Just weird. Why does this guy need a pardon? Anthony Fauci, the Joseph Mengele of our time, got a pardon. This guy, the most prolific mass murderer in human history, got a pardon today. For what? What'd you get a pardon for, Anthony Fauci? Because you created the virus that killed millions of people, and he got a pardon today. Isn't that weird? What does this guy need a pardon for, people? But the biggest surprises in these pardons that Biden handed out, this one just came out just minutes. Just minutes, but when Trump is walking into the rotunda about to be sworn in, this is less than an hour before Donald Trump is being sworn in, they issue a pardon for Joe Biden's family, for Joe Biden's brother, for their spouses. Why do these people need pardons, people?
We have some breaking news we want to share related to all this. President Biden pardoning his family members minutes before President-elect Trump is sworn in. I want to go to our senior legal correspondent, Laura Jarrett. Laura, walk us through it.
Yeah, Lester, a rare and sweeping pardon here from the president in just his final moments while he still occupies that office.
Final moments.
All of his living siblings and their spouses, including James.
All of his living siblings. Joe Biden pardoned all of his living siblings and their spouses. For what? For what, people? And the pardons go back to when? When do you think the pardons go back to? To 2014. To 2014, just like Hunter Biden's pardons, back to 2014. People, this is a huge scandal. This is a huge scandal because why would it need to go back to 2014? Because this all goes back to Ukraine, just like Hunter Biden's pardons goes back to Ukraine and them grifting off of Ukraine and making money off of Ukraine and the pay to play not only in Ukraine and China and Hunter Biden running the business with his brother and then giving 10% for the big guy. Big guy gets 10%. And then the big guy pardons all of his family just before he's on his way out the door. This is a huge scandal, people. A huge scandal.
Family members minutes before President-elect Trump is sworn in. I want to go to our senior legal correspondent, Laura Jarrett. Laura, walk us through it.
Yeah, Lester, a rare and sweeping pardon here from the president in just his final moments while he still occupies that office, pardoning all of his living siblings and their spouses, including James Biden, Sarah Biden, Valerie Owens Biden, his sister, her husband, John T. Owens, and his brother, Francis Biden. Now, Lester, none of these people have been charged with crimes, but he says he's doing this because there's partisan politics here, obviously.
There's partisan politics. I'm doing it because there's partisan politics. I mean, they haven't even been charged of any crimes. What did they do? What did they do to deserve a pardon? All of his siblings, their spouses. I mean, wow. This is back in 2020 when Joe Biden is being sworn in as president and Trump is on his way out in 2020 after January 6th. This is on, you can see the date or where Joe Tapper just posted this on the 20th. I'm not sure exactly when this interview was, but this was either shortly before or shortly after Joe Biden was sworn in 2020. And the speculation was that Donald Trump was going to issue all these pardons for his family and friends, which Donald Trump never issued these pardons, but this was being speculated. And Tapper is interviewing Joe Biden. I want you to take a listen to what he says.
Pardons for his. President Trump is reportedly considering a wave of preemptive pardons for his adult children and for Rudy Giuliani. He's also floated the idea in private conversations, according to our reporting, of possibly pardoning himself, which he insists he has the power to do, though that has never been litigated. Does this concern you? All these preemptive pardons?
Well, it concerns me in terms of what kind of precedent it sets and how the rest of the world looks at us as a nation of laws. And
it concerns me in terms of the precedent that it sets, is what Joe Biden said back in 2020. When it was Trump 45, not 47, Trump 45, that they were speculating that he was going to issue all these pardons for his family members. And the incoming president, Joe Biden, back then said that it concerns me in the precedent that it sets, the way the rest of the world is going to view us as a country of law and order. It concerns me that Donald Trump would be considering pardoning his family, is what Joe Biden says.
All these preemptive pardons?
Well, it concerns me in terms of what kind of precedent it sets and how the rest of the world looks at us as a nation of laws and justice. Look, our Justice Department is going to operate independently on those issues, that how to respond to any of that. I'm not going to be telling them what they have to do and don't have to do. I'm not going to be saying, go prosecute A, B, or C. I'm not going to be telling them. That's not the role. It's not my Justice Department.
Such a liar. This guy is such a liar.
So the persons I pick to run that department are going to be people who are going to have the independent capacity to decide who gets prosecuted and who doesn't. Now, in terms of the pardons, you're not going to see in our administration that kind of approach to pardons.
You're not going to see that kind of approach to pardons in our administration, is what he says. In our administration, you're not going to see that kind of approach to pardons. What a liar. What an absolute liar, this guy. This guy in his past 4 years in office have been an absolute disgrace. An absolute disgrace. It has been a nightmare. He has lied about everything from the beginning. I never talked to my son about his business dealings, is what he said. And then when we learned that he did talk to his son about business dealings, I never had any, interaction with my son with, his business dealings. It wasn't his business dealings. It was a family business. Obviously, it was a family business. It wasn't just Hunter Biden's business. Hunter Biden's business was the family business. And you pardon them all. You pardon Hunter, you pardon your brother, you pardon all the people that were involved in the business. The family business. Just an absolute disgrace. And everybody knows it. I want you to take a look at this clip. This is a clip about Biden leaving with the lowest approval rating of any president, one-term president, in the history of the country since we've been tracking these polls, that he has the lowest approval rating after the first 4 years of any president. And it's staggering. And Joe Biden, and not only Joe Biden, these Democrats all weekend, they've been coming out trying to praise Joe Biden's administration and say how great Joe Biden's administration is. Look at all the things that we accomplished. And, this is a great administration. And even though people don't realize it now, history will reflect kindly. That's the narrative. History will reflect kindly on Joe Biden. No, it's not. History is not going to reflect kindly on Joe Biden. But take a listen to this clip.
As President Biden prepares to exit the White House, President-elect Trump is making his way to Washington to take the oath of office amid a brutal cold spell due to hit the nation's capital on Monday. While Biden's approval ratings exiting office are frosty, Trump appears to be enjoying a bit of a honeymoon period. Joining us now to run the numbers on this, CNN senior data reporter Harry Inton. Hello, Harry.
Hello.
This is a pretty typical pattern, but these numbers for Biden seem especially low.
Yeah, they're historically, though, they're, I dare say, historically awful. What am I talking about here? Well, job approval at the end of the first term. I'm just looking amongst those who lost or didn't run for re-election. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to see which is the lowest number on your screen right now. And an average of polls, my average, Joe Biden's at 38%. He's actually lower than Donald Trump was at the end of his first term. Remember, at the end of his first term, everyone was saying Donald Trump's political career is over.
So I just want to say that this is an average of several polls. If you go to Real Clear Politics, it'll have the an average of several different pollsters. CNN put out their own poll, and they have him at 2 points lower than this. They have him at 36%. I'm going to play another clip after this, and it's going to talk about him at 36%. I want you to understand that that poll is specifically talking about CNN's internal poll, and this poll that Harry Eaton's talking about is an average of several polls. So the average has him at 38%, but when we get to the clip about CNN's internal poll, they have him at 36%. So if you know, the average means that some polls have him a little bit higher and a little bit lower, and the average is the mean. So just wanted to clarify that.
You don't have to be a mathematical genius to see which is the lowest number on your screen right now. And an average of polls, my average, Joe Biden's at 38%. He's actually lower than Donald Trump was at the end of his first term. Remember, at the end of his first term, everyone was saying Donald Trump's political career is over. Joe Biden's approval ratings even lower than Trump's was by just a point. He's lower than Jimmy Carter, who was at 44% by the end of his presidency. Not even close to George H.W. Bush, who was at 56%, saw a nice rebound. But the bottom line is this. Joe Biden came in to end the Donald Trump reign in this country, right? End Donald Trump's political career. And all that's ended up happening is Joe Biden has managed to end up at a lower approval rating at the end of his first term than any president on record, Jessica.
And how are people reflecting on his entire presidency at this moment?
Yeah, so if you think this approval rating number is bad, take a look at this particular number. All right, a good or great president at the end of their terms. Well, Barack Obama, 52% of Americans thought he was a good or great president at the end of his presidency, 2017. Donald Trump, very much behind Barack Obama at 36%. But look at how low Joe Biden is. My goodness gracious, you can't really get lower than 25% in our polarized era, because the bottom line is there's going to be a bunch of Democrats who would say that Biden was a good or great president no matter what he did. But yet it's only a quarter of the country who believes that Joe Biden was a good or great president.
Wow.
It is the lowest number since AP Nork started tracking this back at the end of Barack Obama's second term. Bottom line is Joe Biden goes out a very unpopular man at the end of a 50-plus year political career.
It is. It's so interesting. And there's so many questions, too, about, like, are we so more divided now than we were back in 2017?
No, he was just awful.
There's a lot there to chew on.
He was just awful.
I do want you to talk us through Trump's popularity at this point.
Yeah. So if Joe Biden's numbers are at his lowest point, right, Donald Trump's are right near his top point. We have a little thing up here. I'm so tall, I was managed to actually bump it. Look at this. Trump's record favorable rating. You know, you go back 4 years ago, he was at 38%. Look at where he is today, 47%. That is the highest favorable rating Donald Trump has ever registered in an average of polls. So what we're dealing with is something very interesting, whereby, as I was saying, Joe Biden's at his worst point. Donald Trump is actually at his best point, being with this such a high favorable rating. One other little last thing I will point out, because I want to get to the forecast a little bit, is just take a look at this. Will Trump be a good president? In January of 2017, you saw 48% for Donald Trump. Look at where we are today. A majority expect that Donald Trump will be a good president. So expectations for him are quite high. We'll see if he's able to meet those expectations.
And that's big. That's big that the expectations are high because people are hopeful. I mean, people are hopeful now, and that it says a lot about Donald Trump, that people that they see hope in him. I mean, not saying that he's going to be successful. We hope that he's successful. We pray for his success. We want to get into the game and help him to be successful, because it's going to take all of us to turn this ship around and to right this ship. But this expresses a lot of hope and a lot of optimism that we didn't have yesterday, that we didn't have before November 5th. I mean, we've known that Donald Trump was going to be president ever since November 5th, and there's been that hope and expectation of a brighter tomorrow, a new dawn, all of that, all those different metaphors to express our optimism we've had over the past few weeks, and now Donald Trump is in office. He's the new president, and it does feel like there is a new dawn, or the potential, at least just the potential of righting this ship and turning things around and making this country great again. This is Michael Smerconic. Again, he's from CNN. He talks a little bit about Biden's poll numbers, but I want you to pay attention to what he says here. And again, he's using the CNN numbers here that have Biden at 36%, which, I mean, people are saying that Biden's the worst president ever, which I don't agree with. I still don't believe that he's worse than George W. Bush. George W. Bush, now the polls that they're talking about here are only for one-term presidents. That these numbers that Eaton's talking about, George H.W. Bush only served one term. Carter only one term. Trump, they're just looking at his numbers after his first loss. Trump is now back in office, not a consecutive 2 terms, but he's now on his second term. So they're only looking at one term. George W. Bush, after serving 2 terms, his approval rating was 28%. So he was at an approval rating of 28%. George W. Bush, when he left office, an average of 28%. So I still don't believe that Biden is as bad as even George W. Bush, but he's pretty bad. And I want you to listen to what Smerconic says here.
History will remember Joe Biden as the man who defeated Donald Trump and then paved the way for his return. I'm Michael Smerconic in Philadelphia. That observation comes from a front-page story in today's New York Times. Monday's the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump. The polling data tells us an interesting story about this moment in time. A new CNN poll shows that President Biden's job approval as he leaves Washington stands at 36%. That's the lowest approval rating for any president at the end of his first term. 61% of Americans see the Biden presidency overall as a failure, with only 38% saying it was a success. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's transition approval rating sits at 55%, which according to Gallup far exceeds his first term, where Trump's average approval rating was 41%. Then there's the category of favorability, which is more a measure of a person's feelings rather than job performance. CNN's poll shows that Biden's favorability is at 33%. Trump has a 46% favorable, a 48% unfavorable rating. And even though Trump is underwater by a hair, he's never had a higher favorability than he enjoys right now. So the president-elect's popularity exceeds that of President Biden, whether measured by job approval or favorability. I don't view these two trends independently. I see a causal connection between them. I think that Donald Trump is benefiting from a comparison to Joe Biden. And the Trump's numbers arguably would not be as high if it weren't for that comparison.
I don't know if that's true.
That's a measure that will fade in time as Trump takes office and has a record of his own during his second term.
I don't know that that's a measure that will fade in time, because if Trump is successful, then his numbers are going to go up even higher. Trump's numbers have been going up, and he's more popular than he was back in 2016, 2017 when he was first sworn in. And what Smerconic is saying here is that, well, that's because he's being judged against Joe Biden. Well, of course that's true. He's being judged against the last 4 years and the failure of the Biden administration. But I don't buy the fact that Trump's numbers are going to go down as he starts to govern, because if he's successful, if he's able to do what he says that he's going to do, his numbers are going to go up even more. And the difference between Trump and Biden are just their priority. Again, that's the word, the priority. Joe Biden's priority was NATO, Joe Biden's priority was Europe. Joe Biden's priority was Taiwan and Israel and Ukraine, of course. How can we forget Ukraine? So just the different priority can make the difference. And Trump's going to come in with a different priority. If he's successful, his numbers are going to go up. So I don't agree with that, Smirkanich.
I don't view these two trends independently. I see a causal connection between them. I think that Donald Trump is benefiting from a comparison to Joe Biden, and that Trump's numbers arguably would not be as high if it weren't for that comparison. That's a measure that will fade in time as Trump takes office and has a record of his own during his second term. But here's someone from whom President Biden can take solace. The late Jimmy Carter, the 39th president, began his term, according to Gallup, with a 66% job approval. Then followed several tumultuous events. The Panama Canal deal, bad. The Camp David peace accords, good. The Iranian hostage situation, bad. The tanking of the economy and rising gas prices, even worse. Things got so bad for President Carter during his term in office that people have forgotten that Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy challenged him for the Democratic nomination. Carter beat back that challenge, but not before Kennedy won the states of New York, Connecticut, California, and New Jersey.
So this is really interesting because Ted Kennedy, I remember, he says a lot of people don't remember that Ted Kennedy primaried Carter in 1980. I remember that very well. And Ted Kennedy hurt Jimmy Carter bad. Like if Jimmy Carter, before he died, he would say often that with all of these different things that Smirkanich mentions here that Jimmy Carter was dealing with, the failed Panama Canal transfer, the gas prices and inflation, what was going on with Iran and the hostages. Out of all of these things that Jimmy Carter faced in 1980, Jimmy Carter says that the reason that he lost in 1980, that he gives the biggest the biggest blame to him being primaried from the left from Ted Kennedy. And Smirkanich is sitting here and he's acting like, okay, so this is a different case than Joe Biden had because he didn't have this primary challenger. Yeah, because the Democratic Party didn't allow anybody to primary Joe Biden. They didn't allow Kennedy's nephew, RFK, to primary Joe Biden or any other of the other people that tried to run against Joe Biden in a primary. The Democratic Party prevented because they didn't want this exact same thing that happened to Jimmy Carter when Ted Kennedy primaried him in 1980. They didn't want that same thing to happen and for Biden to be wounded by a primary challenger. So Smirkanich, it's not that nobody didn't want to challenge Joe Biden this year and primary him. Ted Kennedy's nephew, RFK, did, and there were a few others that sought to primary Joe Biden, but the Democratic Party prevented it. They said that we're not going to hold a primary. They refused to let anybody primary him because they didn't want this same outcome that happened in 1980 when Ted Kennedy primaried Jimmy Carter. So he's trying to make this relationship to Joe Biden now and the way Joe Biden is being judged now. And of course, what he's going to say is that as when Jimmy Carter left office and started working for Habitat for the Humanity, and he was an ex-president, here, I'll just let him finish in telling you that he's making this relationship to Joe Biden, which is ridiculous.
He challenged him for the Democratic nomination. Carter beat back that challenge, but not before Kennedy won the states of New York, Connecticut, California, and New Jersey. Carter, of course, then went on to lose in a landslide to Ronald Reagan. According to Gallup, in December, before Carter left office, he had only a 34% approval rating. And Carter's average approval while in office, it was higher at 46%. Here's the silver lining, perhaps, for Biden. When in 2023, Americans were asked retrospectively whether they approved of Jimmy Carter as president, 57% said yes. And I'm sure that number would be even higher today, given the outpouring of emotion after his recent passing.
So I want you to understand what Smirkanich is saying here. He's saying that, yes, Joe Biden is being judged negatively now. because the disaster of his presidency is fresh on people's mind. He has a 36% approval rating now. But like Carter, as an ex-president, when people get to reflect on his presidency and how great of a president he was, then like Carter, then he is going to be viewed in the future that the history books will view him in a more positive light than he's being viewed now. And I think that is completely ridiculous. Did Jimmy Carter pardon his family? His family members? Did Jimmy Carter lie about not having any interaction with his son over his overseas business dealings? Did Jimmy Carter have all of these problems that, Jimmy Carter had a lot of problems, but he didn't have the same problems that Joe Biden had. He didn't have the same issues that Joe Biden had. And then, so this is something that we're hearing from these Democrats all weekend. They were all posting on X. They were all commenting that Joe Biden is, and his presidency and what we've achieved in the last 4 years, that the history books are going to look back and they're going to look positively on what we did. And Joe Biden even said I think this was in his farewell address. He's done a couple of addresses because this guy's having a really hard time dealing with the fact that he is leaving office and he is so unpopular. He's really upset that they forced him out of the race. He thinks that he would have been able to beat Trump. He's so delusional that he thinks that he would have been able to beat Trump. He's still angry at Nancy Pelosi and his family, and there's all this turmoil there because he's having a hard time dealing with the fact that he's leaving office as a loser, as a complete loser. And no, the history books are not going to reflect positively on Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not going to be viewed in the same light as Jimmy Carter when he passes away or in the future. Not at all, because this guy is a criminal, is a just absolute utter corruption. We have been swimming in their corruption, and him pardoning his family members is just evidence of that. Not only his family members, these other people like the Joseph Mengele of our time and Mark Milley and the January 6th committee. No, Joe Biden, I disagree with Smirkanich. Joe Biden will not be looked at favorably in the future, maybe even looked at worse, especially if Trump is successful and turning this ship around and righting the wrongs that not only Joe Biden, but the entire establishment, going back to the 1960s, like I said in the last podcast. All right, so let's listen to a little bit of Donald Trump's inauguration speech. This is one of the my personal favorite lines in his speech today. Take a listen.
Over the past 8 years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
I love that line. That's my favorite line. That's my favorite part of the speech, that I was saved by God to make America great again, is what he says. It's awesome. Here's a little bit more of the speech. Let's listen to President Trump.
Ambition is the lifeblood of a great nation. And right now our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth. No one comes close. Americans pushed thousands of miles through a rugged land of untamed wilderness. They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom.
All done here in America.
Mankind into the heavens.
All done here in America.
Put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together,
we did it all without H-1B visas too, President Trump.
Ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I stand before you now as proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best.
It's true.
From New York to Los Angeles, from Philadelphia to Phoenix, from Chicago to Miami, from Houston to right here in Washington, D.C., our country was forged and built by the generations of patriots who gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. They were farmers and soldiers, cowboys and factory workers, steel workers and coal miners, police officers and pioneers who pushed onward, marched forward, and let no obstacle defeat their spirit or their pride. Together they laid down the railroads, raised up the skyscrapers, built great highways, won 2 world wars, defeated fascism and communism, and triumphed over every single challenge that they faced. After all,
we didn't need H-1B visas to do it either, President Trump. He did it with American engineers, American hard work. Americans did it.
And through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America, promise, and we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We're going to win like never before. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In recent years, our nation has suffered greatly, but we are going to bring it back and make it great again, greater than ever before. We will be a nation like no other, full of compassion, courage, and exceptionalism. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally unpredictable. America will be respected again and admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken. and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation.
A free, sovereign, and independent nation. I mean, this speech was so good. It was so good. Everyone was, all the people on the left were complaining about it, saying, oh, it was so divisive, because there were parts of it where he was just really going in. Joe Biden was sitting right there behind him. Kamala Harris is right there, and Obama and Clinton, and he's just going in on them, just going in. I mean, this is the end of the speech. I didn't play any of the parts where he's just really, really going in on them. And it is so good. He is like flaming them up right in front of their faces, flaming them up. It is so good. It's funny too, because they had to go inside because of the weather. They did the swearing in, and he did his speech in the rotunda on the top level. But at the bottom level of the rotunda, they had the overflow, and they had many of his supporters down there watching the swearing in on a screen and listening to his speech on a screen. But then they also had a podium set up down there. So then after he gives this speech in front of Obama and all the Democrats and everything on the top level of the rotunda, he goes downstairs to where his supporters are, mostly his supporters and his hardcore supporters are there. And then he delivers another speech, and he says in that speech that the speech that he had written to give on this on the second level, the speech that he had written to give in front of Obama and Clinton and Bush and all of his enemies, all of our enemies, that speech that he had written, that Melania and J.D. Vance read it and other people read it, and they asked them to can you tone this down a little bit, because you're flaming them up a little bit too hard. And even after editing it and taking some of that stuff out, he still flamed them up real good too. He filleted them. And it was hilarious watching Biden's face while he's sitting there flaming them up like that. But he edited the speech, and then he says when he goes downstairs to his supporters, he's like, these are the things that I wanted to say. But I mean, this was such a good speech. And everybody, again, all of the Democrats were saying, well, I thought he was going to be, it was going to be a unity speech. I thought he was going to, try to unify everyone. Yeah, it was very unifying to people who love this country. If you love America and you want the best for America, it was a very unifying speech. If you don't like this country, if you hate this country, if you're part of what has been the American decline over the past 3, 4, 5 decades, then yeah, it was not a unity speech for you. It was a divisive speech for you, because we don't want to unify with people that don't love this country and don't want the best for this country. We're not interested in unifying with you. So of course it didn't sound unifying to you if you don't love this country and you don't want the best for this country and you don't want this country to succeed. If you're not that type of person and you hate this country and you want the worst for this country, then yes, this sounded very divisive to you.
Thank you. In recent years, our nation has suffered greatly, but we are going to bring it back and make it great again, greater than ever before. We will be a nation like no other, full of compassion, courage, and exceptionalism. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally unpredictable. America will be respected again and admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. Thank you. God bless America. Thank you all. Thank you.
I hope it's our golden age. I hope that we're able to turn it around. I hope so. So the bars in DC were full of people because people traveled to DC to witness the swearing in and his speech. And then when they moved it indoors into the rotunda, all these people that had traveled to DC weren't able to attend. So they go to these bars and they're watching the inauguration. This is a scene at an Irish bar there in DC when everyone starts cheering at when the inauguration and the swearing in takes place. So I want you to take a look at this. And this is another one. This is another bar there in DC. Take a listen.
And will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend. The Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
I mean, the optimism is in the air. People are just so excited today. It is beautiful, and I'm excited too. But again, a lot of people aren't excited. A lot of the Democrats and people on the left were complaining and saying that Trump's speech was divisive. It wasn't, what they thought. They thought it was going to be a uniting speech. And again, I thought it was very uniting. I mean, if you love this country, if you want this country to turn around and to be respected again, like the president said, to be prosperous again, like he says, I mean, I can unify around that. I want to read this quote from Cicero. If you don't, Cicero was a Roman senator in the first century. He was a historian. He was a philosopher, just a brilliant man. Marcus Cicero, member of the Roman Senate in the first century, and he wrote this famous quote about treason. I want to read this to you. It says that a nation can survive its fools, and we got a lot of fools in this nation. He says, even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable, for he is known and carries his banner openly. The enemy at the gate. We know the Chinese enemy at the gate. Well, because he carries his red flag. We know the ISIS enemy at the gate because the ISIS enemy has his ISIS flag and carries his banner openly, is what Cicero is saying. But the traitor moves amongst those within the gates freely. His sly whispers rustling through all the alleys, heard in the very halls of government itself. For the traitor appears not a traitor. He speaks in the accents familiar to his victims, and he wears their face and their arguments. He appeals to the baseness that lies deep in the hearts of all men. He rots the soul of the nation. He works secretly. He works secretly and unknown in the night to undermine the pillars of the city. He infects the body politic so that it can no longer resist. A murderer is less to fear. The traitor is the plague. And we have a bunch of traitors in this country that fit what Cicero is saying here. They look like us. They sound like us. They talk, in the vernacular and the accents that we talk in. But they don't have our same interests. They don't have the interest of making this country great again. They don't have the interest of making this country better. They're traitors. They only care about themselves and feeding off this country and what they can get what they can get personally from this country. That's why Joe Biden and his family, he pardoned all of his family, because that's all they care about. That's all they care about is how Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, all the other people that were invested in the Ukraine war and profiting off of Ukraine. That's all they care about. They don't care about America. They care about their own pocketbooks. They care about themselves. They're traitors. They don't have the same interests as the people of America that love this country, that want the best for this country, that have the interests of this country in mind. I just thought that this was a profound a quote that I wanted to share with you guys, because I recently watched the new Gladiator movie. Terrible movie, horrible movie. But if you know the real history that it's being loosely tied to in that movie, then there's a lot of relationship in that history, in that period of time in Roman history, to what's going on here in America. So the first Gladiator movie is all about the end of what is called Pax Romana, the golden age of Rome. And Pax Romana ends with the death of Marcus Aurelius. And Marcus Aurelius, when he dies, his son becomes emperor, Commodus. And Commodus, again, I've told this story many times, he was not ready to be emperor. He was a terrible leader. And shortly after Commodus becomes emperor, he is assassinated and murdered. And in the year after Commodus is assassinated and murdered, the empire was in crisis. It was the empire was in crisis then. At the end of Marcus Aurelius's death, at the end of Pax Romana, the empire was in crisis. But Septimus Severus. So I'm going to read a little bit about this, the year of the five emperors, because the year of the five emperors was the year after Commodus, if in the first Gladiator movie, he's played by Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix character who fights Russell Crowe in the arena at the end of the movie. The Commodus character is played by Joaquin Phoenix, and then the Russell Crowe character is a fictional character, and that's why I really don't like these movies, because they're mixing, the fiction in with the real history. I mean, the second Gladiator movie was just completely awful. Tons of CGI, tons of just huge effects and everything, but the storyline was awful. It was awful. The real history, you should have just told the real history, because the real history is actually more interesting than this fake history that you put together for this movie. But anyway, so we're talking about the first Gladiator movie now, and Commodus, and then Commodus dies. I'm talking real history, not the movie, but Commodus in the real history, Commodus, when he is assassinated after his father's death, and when he becomes emperor, he's assassinated. In that year after he's assassinated, there's five emperors, five people take the throne. Let's read a little bit about this. The year of the five emperors. The year of five emperors was 193 AD, in which five men claimed the title of Roman emperor. This year started a period of civil war when multiple rulers vied for the chance to become emperor. The political unrest began with the murder of Emperor Commodus on New Year's Eve, 192. Once Commodus was assassinated, Pertinax was named emperor, and immediately arose opposition in the Persian Gulf. So if you know anything about the third century crises, the third century crisis was, amongst many other things, a succession crisis where emperor would rise up. There was a fight to take over that emperor. He was either killed by his own men, or another emperor would come in and challenge him and then take. So that's what happened during the third century crisis. But this was already taking place after the death of Commodus. Septimus Severus comes in and he puts a stop to it in 193, and then he creates the Severan dynasty. So in the Gladiator 2 movie, the reign of Geta and his son Caracalla, then those are the sons of Septimus Severus. So Septimus Severus actually pulls the empire back together from this period where it was already in crisis. It was already in crisis, and it already had experienced decline from the Pax period of Pax Romana, and Septimus Severus was the emperor, and the Severan dynasty, they were able to pull things together, and they built a lot and created a lot of the. If you go to even Rome today and you look at a lot of the ancient buildings that are still standing there today, they were built not in Pax Romana. They were built during the Severan dynasty. So the relationship that I'm trying to make to what's going on in America today is that Septimus Severus, he was able to pull things together after Rome was in crises at the end of Pax Romana and the death of Marcus Aurelius. He was able to pull it together, and then he dies, and then his sons take over, and they're the ones who are portrayed in the second Gladiator movie, Geta and Caracalla. But at the end of the Severan dynasty, when Alexander Severus, when he is finally killed, and that's when the third century crisis starts. So basically what I'm saying is that even though Septimus Severus and the Severan dynasty, they were able to stop what had happened in 193 and the year of the five emperors and the crisis that had taken place, it didn't last. That the crisis still came. He just prolonged the crisis. That he didn't, not prolong the crisis. He interrupted the crisis. That the crisis would have started a lot sooner without Septimus Severus, is what I said, what I'm trying to say. But he came in and he pulled things together. He got the empire back on its feet for a short time, but it still didn't prevent what would eventually happen. And the third century crisis still came, and the decline of Rome still came because he wasn't able to pull it together. But he tried. So what I'm saying, and the relationship I'm making to now with Donald Trump and us, here in 2025, is that we have a chance to set the United States on the course to greatness again, like what Septimus Severus was attempting to do when he took control of the empire after the year of the five emperors. And Donald Trump, he's got 4 years, and he may be able to set it on a course where we can get back to being a prosperous nation, to being a great nation again. And it's going to depend on what happens. If Donald Trump's able to do that, it's going to depend on what happens after him and the course that he puts us on, what we do after that. I thought that there was a relationship there. I still think there was a relationship there. I just don't know that I'm explaining it right. But what I'm basically saying is that that we have a chance to set us on a course where we can enter into this period of what I call Pax Americana. But if we don't do it, then the decline that we're on right now, after leaving the Biden administration and the years of decline, if we don't set the ship right and bring things together, then we're going to experience the exact same thing that happened in Rome in the 3rd century at the end of the Severan dynasty, that we're going to be in a major crisis like the 3rd century crisis that eventually changed Rome forever. I think that's about it for this show. I want to play this clip. I wanted to show this is going viral ever since all the controversy about the TikTok ban. A bunch of Americans have been joining this other Chinese app called Red Note. It translates literally into Little Red Book. It's what it translates into in Mandarin, and that goes back to Mao Zedong and his Little Red Book during the reign of Mao Zedong in China. And people are getting on this app, and they're talking to Chinese citizens, and they're seeing videos of Chinese cities, and they're like, look, China is actually doing better than us. Their cities are better than us. They have a lot more prosperity. They, their groceries and everything's cheap. They're living better than us. And that's what a bunch of people are saying. And this video was going viral of Shanghai. I want you to take a look at it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Shanghai. Step into China's world of advanced transportation and stunning architecture. Join me as we explore Shanghai's vibrant cityscape under the evening lights.
So people were looking at this video of Shanghai, and they're saying, well, why don't we have cities like this? Why don't we have that? Well, who's the mayor of Shanghai? Is the mayor of Shanghai Karen Bask? Is the mayor of Shanghai Lori Lightfoot? Who runs Shanghai, and who runs American cities? There's a reason that Shanghai looks like this. And then watch this video of this guy talking about LA fire departments. These are our cities. Take a listen.
LA fire stations are falling apart, and there are some that are even dangerous. Over the past few days, I've probably been to 20 firehouses, and what I've seen has been absolutely infuriating. It is impossible to get anything fixed. Most of the firemen I've talked to this week do the repairs at the stations themselves with their own money. I am not exaggerating this. The very first firehouse I pulled up to, there were firemen in the back filling in a pothole with sand. If LAFD finds out you've made any of your own repairs, you're punished. I have talked to firemen that have to barter supplies with other stations to get the supplies that they need. At the next station, when I asked the fireman if I can come in and document the damage, he said, just take pictures of the outside of the building and you'll know what the inside is like. This fire station, its garage door has been broken for a year. They've begged and begged LAFD to fix it, who was punishing them for not having quick enough response times. And it got repaired this week only because the local community stepped in and fundraised money. There's stuff like this citywide, and LAFD is terrified you'll find out because they know you'll be pissed. The mold infestation at Los Angeles Fire Station 112 was so bad, it sent its fire chief to the hospital. He was on life support for 3 weeks. His leg turned black and they had to amputate his thumb. Mold is a huge problem. It isn't just one fire department, it's like 15 and very well documented. Going back to station 112, after complaints and complaints, I talked with a guy who self-financed his own mold test. When the inspector came, he told him it was the worst case of mold he'd seen in his life. Another fireman here refused to go into the kitchen because every time he did, his face would break out in hives. The firemen here were sleeping on the fireboat until their higher up told them they had to stop doing that because it looked bad. Why is this like this? There's multiple reasons, but the biggest is the union. An active fireman told me there's a lack of funding, goes nowhere bureaucracy, inaccessible chain of command, and mismanagement. So look, I'm not intimate with this union's policies, but if it's any indication, they might have the one flagpole I have seen in the city that's not flying at half-mast. Seems like they have a lot of respect. A fireman told me every fireman in the city are terrified to talk to you. This is actually the reason why firemen can't talk to media. As a fireman told me, it's their way of damage control.
So this is our cities. This is our major city, our second most populous city in America, and this is what our firehouses look like. I mean, I'm sure that Shanghai has some slums that are not being exposed in this video, but yeah, I mean, it's different. It's different, people. So hopefully we can turn it around. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Again, I have a lot of hope and optimism. I hope that we can be successful in this new Trump administration. I'm really excited about it. I'll be back on Friday, and I'll see you guys on Friday.